enough of Roger. Like, no one wants to hear about him anymore. Everyone's sick of him.
Boring, right? Boring.
But let's talk about, Mary Joe and kind of your association with tennis, even before Roger. I remember my first memory of you is recruiting my friend Marty, right? And seeing you,
Yes, Marty Fish. Yeah. I tried to recruit you too, but you wanted nothing of it. But that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, it wasn't personal. It was just like I knew that IMG was eventually going to sign Roger, and I wasn't going to get a call back.
Right,
so
exactly. Okay,
yeah. So I think we were all fine with that one. But I remember when you were looking at juniors and going to watch matches, and before this whole, we're not talking about flying to Japan to work out a $300 million deal. We're talking about trying to sign the person who maybe, is good enough to be top 40. And then obviously your wife, Mary Joe, who I adore, obviously great player, amazing commentator. Bella has grown up around this tennis world. Nico now plays at Stanford. Kind of just speak to the family dynamic and the fact that it, I'm assuming from the kids can remember, is largely based in this sport of tennis.
Yeah. So I overmarried. I owe everything to Monica Seles. I interned at IMG when I was at Dartmouth twice. And after my second internship, where I got a chance to travel with Monica one weekend to a tournament in Mahwah, New Jersey, afterwards, I quickly went to the U.S. Open. She won the U.S. Open. I had to go back to school. I asked her, could you get me a full-time job, please, when I graduate next June. And she said, yeah, let me ask Mark McCormick. So I actually got a job offer in March of 1993. You're going to move out to Cleveland, Ohio. You're going to work with Monica Seles, and you'll be her day-to-day manager, traveling with her. And then remember, unfortunately, I think it was one of the most tragic things in sport, and doesn't get talked about enough, is she gets stabbed in Hamburg, Germany in April of 93. She was on her way to being the greatest female tennis player in history. She had
won 8 slams as a teenager at that
20.
point.
Yeah. I mean, this is crazy. Yeah. You look at some of these other, anyway, that's really, truly one of the most tragic and sad things ever. But they said, don't worry, she's going to come back. You still, so I moved out to Cleveland, and she ended up coming back, I guess, like 2 years later. But she introduced me to Mary Joe. And she said, look, Mary Joe, you got to try to take her on a date. I'm like, I'm not allowed. There are rules. You can't date clients. She's like, she's not your client. You represent me. You don't represent her.
Fair feedback.
Enough, Yeah, fair feedback. So anyway, Monica introduced me to Mary Joe. And actually, Mary Joe, I didn't really play tennis very well. So Mary Joe actually helped me learn the game a little bit, which was wonderful.
And you think now that's changed?
No, not at all. Okay. I'm so bad.
Okay.
But, I don't play very often in front of people, so the perception might be that I can hit a ball and I won't prove them differently. But anyway.
That's good. So that's good strategy, actually.
So anyway, and then Monica, she got me the job. She introduced me to Mary Joe. We have these 2 great kids, but then she's the one that signed Roger Federer for me, Monica. So Roger had left IMG. He was on his own. He became number 1. He realized, I'm probably missing out on some business opportunities, so I need a new agent. And so he came to New York in August of 2005, right before the U.S. Open, with the idea I need to interview agents because I can't have my mom and dad in America do this. And that coincided with Ted Forsman had just bought the company. Mark McCormick had unfortunately passed away. He was a legend. This guy, just a legend. And so Ted called Monica and said, do you know this Federer guy? I want him to come back to my new IMG. And she's like, well, I don't really know him very well, but I know Mirka. Set up a meeting. So they had a meeting. I wasn't at the meeting. And it was Teddy and Roger and Mirka and Lynette Federer and Monica. And so Ted's like, I'm the new sheriff in town, and I'll look after you. I'll be your agent. And, I own all these companies, Gulfstream, Yankee Candle, Dr. Pepper, and now IMG, and I'll be your guy. So anyway, he left the meeting, and Roger looked at Monica and said, what do I do? And Monica said, look, go back to IMG, do it for a year. But he's like, who's going to be my agent? She said, my agent. The guy I trust there is Tony. Do something with him for a year, and then you'll know. So sure enough, I get a phone call from Monica. It was the Tuesday of the U.S. Open. Had just started. She said, you have a new client. I said, what do you mean? She said, Roger's going to come back, and you're going to be his agent. But Forsman's going to call you in 5 minutes.
Was that a good phone call here? Have the number 1 player in the world.
I was like, yeah, sure, Monica. I'm like, sure. And so Forsman called me 5 minutes later and just said, hey, Godsick, I made your career. Get down to my office. And I'm like, what did you do? I knew from Monica.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went down to his office at the GM building, and he's like, look, I just met Federer. I just signed him. You're going to be the agent. Don't screw it up. You got to go meet him. And so anyway, so I waited for the whole US Open.
You got to go meet him. You're going to be the agent. You got to go meet him. I love this. This is amazing.
I tried to meet him at the US Open, and they would like kind of run away from me. And that's why as soon Mary Jo was working for CBS, she got me down into the referee's office after he won. And that's when, as I said earlier, that's when he said, hey, do you know what's going on? Can you meet us at our hotel room tomorrow? We can discuss, because there's some things that we talked to Ted about that we need to make sure are included in our agreement and all that stuff. So I did. So Monica signed Roger too. So anyway, so Monica's the one I owe a lot to. But with Mary Jo, I definitely overmarried. She's the nicest person in the world. She taught me everything I know about tennis. She, I won't lie. She's been massively helpful in being a voice of reason in so many of the things that Roger and Mirka and I have done. And then my kids, Bella was 3 or 4 years old when I started managing Roger, and Nico was just kind of born. So they grew up around Roger, and he always included my kids before he had his own kids. And even now when he's got 4 kids, he always included my kids in everything. And I think part of it was he knew that he was taking me away from home, because I was on the road for 2/3 of the year. So anyway, so tennis has been in their DNA. My daughter played high school tennis. She was a lacrosse player in college, but she loves her tennis, still plays very well. Mary Jo still plays. And then Nico grew up, we used to call him the tennis elf, because he just loved, and he wanted everything Roger. He dressed like him, posters everywhere. I'm actually, in our house in Cleveland.
Company man.
I was, well, he's smart. He's a smart guy. But anyway, so now, Nico, as I said to you earlier, I'm the worst tennis player in the family. On Sundays when we play family doubles, there's a fight between the kids who has to play with me. But anyway,
I mean, it's the joke is I'm the worst tennis player in my family, but when you're married to a singles Grand Slam finalist and your kid plays at Stanford, it's not exactly like a terrible, it's not exactly like you're bad.
I wish I was better.
I have this thing, and I think I mentioned it to you at Laver Cup, seeing Bella who's grown and seeing Nico who's grown, and I will forever all the kids from tour that I knew when they were 3 or 4, I can never picture them as anything other than the 4-year-old version of themselves. And then Nico comes up to me and starts talking about quantum physics. And I'm like, bro, I don't know that. I don't know anything about that. But it's just fun to see them grow up into I don't know what the expectation is, but when they come up and they're so nice and pleasant, and you've done a great job with Roger, but I think the definition of your success is your children, because they are fantastic. Oh, and you've already covered Mary Jo being just a little bit better than you.
I always tell people, I always tell Nico, you would be number 1 in the world if I wasn't half your gene pool. I apologize. So I apologize, but no, Mary Jo obviously is a super nice person. All her niceness is rubbed off on our kids, but obviously having Roger and Mirka as role models for these kids growing up, and Mary Jo always said, "Hey, I don't mind that you're sort of out of the house, because I know you're out on the road with such a nice guy."